Hi everyone, it's P and welcome back to a new video. Today I'll be sharing some of the books that I have read in the past 6 months. If you guys want to know what I've read, then keep on watching. So the first book that I read in January was After I Do by Jenkins. Reid. This is a realistic take on how long-term relationships can go and how two people can go from being in love to actually hating each other's guts. I really liked the flow of this story. I feel like if you have been in a long-term relationship and you've experienced being in some kind of rut, you would definitely relate to this book. What makes this book even more interesting is that these two people, they were married. So they've been together since college, and then eventually they started working and then building their life together, and then finally deciding to settle down. And the moment na kinasal sila, tsaka pumasok yung mga problema sa relationship nila. So this is about how two people are trying to tackle that relationship, how they're rebuilding it, or if they have any plans of rebuilding it. I personally really like it. Some of you guys may not like it. I have read some of the reviews na meron mga ibang readers na hindi nila masyadong nagustuhan. And if that's the kind of theme that you're going for, then you're gonna enjoy this book. So the next book that I read is called Cassandra In by Holly Smale. And this is a story about time traveling, being on the autism spectrum. It's about mending relationships, specifically sibling relationships. It's trying to make things right, and there's also a little bit of Greek mythology infused in this book. So it's a little bit of everything, but I love how the author was able to bind them all together and make this story so coherent. I absolutely love the theme of this book. So at first, see Cassandra, one day she just started time traveling. Whenever something goes wrong in her life, she's able to time travel to that one particular scenario in her life. And at first, yung goal niya is to try to change it to benefit her. Pero in the long run, nagbago yung perception niya about time traveling. She was able to discover so many things about herself, other people, her colleagues, her relationship with her sibling. It's beautiful. Sobrang quirky niya. I feel like you're gonna learn a lot from this book. There are so many lessons that you can get from this book. You're totally going to enjoy it. So my third book is The Housemaid by Freida McFadden. Nagtrending tong libro na to, and I was also intrigued, so I decided to give it a go, but it was not up to my expectations. Yes, there is a twist, but for me, hindi siya yung parang wow, oh my god, mind-blowing. Not really. So it's a story about Millie. She is a housemaid in a pretty wealthy household. Kaya lang yung naging boss niya, which is yung wife, is may pagka-borderline crazy. I think she had some mental health problems, and so Millie had to deal with that. And then there's a whole twist going on around that family. The first part of the book was quite slow, and then during the second part, doon na siya biglang nag-progress. It was okay for me. So when she released her second book, I was still very much intrigued to see kung saan mapupunta si Millie. The second book, which is The Housemaid's Secret, was, I think, much better than the first one. Ito, hindi ko in-expect yung twist na mangyayari at the end. So, Millie is again working for a wealthy family. Kaya lang, si wife she is in an abusive relationship. So, Millie tries to do her best na tulungan yung wife. And then, all of a sudden, yun, nagkaroon ng twist dun sa story, which I did not expect at all. So, comparing the first and second book, I really enjoyed the second one. And then came her third book, which I also read. It's called The Housemaid's Secret. So ito, fast forward 10 years later, finally she has her own family. Nakabili na siya ng bahay in a safe neighborhood, and she is done with her housemaid era. Kaya lang, there's something fishy going on with her neighbors. So it was very slow. There was nothing happening during, I would say, the first 80% of the book. I kept asking myself, when is the action gonna take place? It was very boring for me, and as the story progressed, I actually had an inkling of what was already happening. So the story is quite predictable. The next book that I read is called A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara, and Alam nyo, ito yung libro kung bakit nag-stall yung reading progress ko. I don't want to give away too much from the book because I feel like if I start talking about it, there's going to be a lot of spoilers. But basically, it's a story about 4 friends and yung dynamics nila from the time na college sila hanggang sa tumanda sila. If you guys are going to read this book, please make sure that you are in the right headspace. You are emotionally and mentally stable because this book will break your heart. Ngayon na parang naaalala ko kung ano yung nangyari dun sa story, I am getting teary-eyed. This book still makes me super duper emotional. You know, I started reading this in December of last year, and then I'm not gonna lie, the first part is quite boring, sobrang slow, and then I tried reading it again by Feb, and finally I think I finished reading it in March. It was so heartbreaking, truly heartbreaking. The writer is so good. Okay, so yung first part, the moment that you start reading it, it's gonna be really boring. It's what all of the other readers are saying, because what the writer does is she really allows you to get to know each character. The further along that you are in the book, she starts each chapter without mentioning the character that she's talking about. She doesn't mention any names. You just know that the author is talking about or is pinpointing to this specific character because of how it's written. So she really built up each character through the tone of her writing. It's that good. There are a lot of trigger warnings in this book, so make sure that you are in a good headspace, you are mentally and emotionally stable before you start reading this book. Basta kailangan ready ka. This book is so good, but then at the same time, it is also so bad. It's the same thing that my friend told me before kasi siya yung una nakabasa, si Emil. Sabi niya na, ate, I don't know if I can recommend this book because this book is so good but it's also so bad at the same time. And after reading this book, I'm also feeling the same way. I think this is the kind of book na I cannot reread. Hindi ko siya ulit kayang basahin because it's truly that heartbreaking. And kapag ka nabasa niyo siya, let me know in the comment section below what you think about it. Pag-usapan natin. So the next book that I read is called The Burnout by Sophie Kinsella, and this is a story about a person's mental health in a corporate setting and how toxic it can be when you're not taking care of the company or the institution that you're working for. So essentially, itong si Sasha, who is the protagonist of the story, she finally loses her mind and one day just quits her job and goes out of town. She tries to find herself, tries to get her life in balance, and then while she was out of town, meron siyang na-meet. So there's also that romance in the story. This book is super fun. It's a reminder to take care of your health if you're working a corporate or a 9-to-5 job. Very light read and very quick lang siya. So if you think na parang meron kayong similar na pinagdadaanan, baka makarelate kayo dito sa librong to. Our next book is called Maybe Next Time by Cesca, and this story is about a woman who is stuck on a time loop as she tries to save her husband from dying. So she relives the same day again and again, trying to find a way to save her husband. Pero kahit anong gawin niya, her husband just drops dead every single day at the same exact time. At the end of the story, it's just basically about a woman trying to acknowledge the 5 stages of grief. Yun yung personal take ko on this book. And you know how there are books that feels like it's better on screen than being read? This is one of those books because like 90% of the time, every single chapter started with the same paragraph with the same words, and it's quite tiring to read the same thing again and again every single chapter. Now I heard that Apple Studios acquired the rights to this book, so I'm quite excited to see how this will play out on screen. Next book is called In a Single Moment by Imogen Clark. This is a very classic babies switched at birth kind of story, but I would say this has been the most boring book that I have read this 2024 as of yet. The entire time, it just compared the personalities of the 2 kids growing up, And I think right from the beginning, the author has already set the tone na the babies were 100% switched. So from the beginning until the end, the story was very monotonous. There were no highs or lows within the book, and even the ending was just so flat for me. So I definitely would not recommend this book, but if you are into stories such as babies being switched at birth, you guys can go ahead and read this. Next, we have The Wishing Game by Meg Schaffer or Schaffer. This is a story about a woman who wants to adopt a kid in her class. Unfortunately, she is not financially stable to be able to do that. And one day she gets a call to be in a competition that has the potential to obviously change her life. The story is very short, it's very heartwarming. It's mostly about realizing that as adults, we're also just kids trying to survive the everyday life, and so we shouldn't forget how to be a kid as well. Like when we're tackling our day-to-day life, dapat hindi mawala yung pagiging kid at heart natin. The next book that I read is called Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret by Judy Blume, and this is one of my favorite books of all time because ito yung libro na nabasa ko kung bakit sobrang hilig ko magbasa today. When I was a kid, I hated reading, but yun pala, I just haven't found the right book that would connect to me. So when I first read this, I was about 11 to 12 years old, and the reason why I got my hands on this book was because in class we had a library period and we had to pick a book from our bookshelves and had to read it for the next 45 minutes. And I just picked up this book without thinking about it. Basta pinili ko lang siya because yun yung nakita kong available, and yun yung pinakamanipis na libro in our bookshelf. And then when I started reading it, it was the first time that I actually got to relate to a book. So this is a story about a girl who is on her way to get her period. And during that time, being a Filipina, and I know if you're a Filipina or you live in an Asian household, you would relate. Not talking about periods and boys and crushes, it was kind of taboo in our family. So being able to read that book was like a breath of fresh air for me because naramdaman ko na, oh my gosh, hindi lang pala ako yung nakaka-experience ng ganito. There is another person out there who is actually also experiencing the same thing. So this book felt like a friend and a companion to me at the same time, and also a teacher. When I was a kid, my perspective was all about periods and menstruation, but then when I reread it again, nagbago yung perception ko about this book, and the message that it has for me today is Margaret's personal relationship with God. Because as she was on her way to being a young adult, she was also struggling with her religion because her mom is a Christian and her dad is a Jew, and her parents decided to not label her or give her any religion until she's ready, until she's an adult, so that she can choose her own religion. So habang lumalaki siya, nagkakaroon din siya ng struggles. She tried going to a Protestant church, a Jewish ceremony, and during those times, lagi niya sinasabi na parang, you know, I've tried these services, but I just can't connect with you, God. Why do I feel like I can only connect with you when I'm talking to you on my own, or when I'm doing this or when I'm doing that? And I think that's a very, very important reminder that God doesn't exist, at least for me, God doesn't exist in a specific religion. It is definitely your own personal relationship with the Almighty or the Creator. So my next book is called The Love of My Afterlife by Kirsty Greenwood, and I absolutely enjoyed this book. As in, sobrang dami kong tawa while reading this book. It is so funny. So this is a story about Delphi. She lives a very monotonous life. As in, gising sa umaga, pasok, come back home, eat dinner, and sleep. And that's her life every single day until one day she chokes on a hamburger. Unfortunately, she dies a virgin, no less. And she arrives in laundry heaven. Tapos, pagdating niya doon, obviously, she's not ready to die yet. So, she begs for her angel to bring her back to Earth. And sabi naman ng angel niya, okay, fine, you can go back to Earth, but in one condition. You need to find your soulmate, have that soulmate kiss you, and you only have 10 days to do it. So pagbalik niya ng Earth, so many things unfolded. It's quite beautiful, I would say, and this book is a reminder for you to just live your life and not care about what other people are gonna say. If you feel like you're stuck in a rut na parang feeling mo there's nothing new or there's nothing happening in your life, then this book is for you. You'll definitely enjoy it. Finally, the last book that I recently read is called Forever Interrupted by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So this is a story about Elsie, and she got married. She's only been married for like 2 weeks, and one day her husband just died because of a freak accident. So this is a story about her and her mother-in-law's healing process. I feel like this book has a lot of potential, but I am just not its target audience. But if you're someone who is dealing with loss or healing or moving on from someone that you love, or you are in a grieving process, I feel like you would enjoy this book. Pero for me talaga, na-bored ako dito sa libro na to. So those are all of the books that I read from January to July of this year. It's only a total of 13 books. Hopefully from August to the end of the year, I can go back to a proper rhythm and read more books. If you guys have any book recommendation, please leave them in the comments below, because so far lately, yung mga libro na napipili ko is medyo boring. Ewan ko, hindi ko siya na-enjoy. Nakailang DNF na ako na libro this year. I start and I just cannot get through the second or third chapter. Hindi ko talaga sila na-enjoy. So if you have any recommendations, please do leave them in the comments below. Again, if you guys reached the end of this video, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on my next one. Bye!